A film recently came out called Hereditary. This film was a more explicit version of black magic and the occult than I've ever seen, or at least in a long, long time. A lot of people were kind of grossed out. The director of Hereditary even said something to the effect of that he felt like had something inside of her that was gnawing to come out, almost like a kind of possession. Now, that could have been a marketing gimmick, but I think it's worth noting that the film is very similar to a film that came out several decades ago. There's a film called To the Devil, a Daughter, and it bears striking similarities to the film Hereditary. So rather than go into an in-depth analysis of Hereditary, I want to look back at something that's even more revelatory. And I say it's more revelatory not because Hereditary doesn't talk about the occult and ritual magic, but To the Devil, a Daughter deals with the fact that within larger religious structures like the Roman Catholic Church or even other groups, you find inner coteries, inner esoteric cults and societies. In fact, in To the Devil, a Daughter, we learn that this inner sect comes out of Bavaria. Now, the reason that matters is that in Bavaria, you have the history of the Bavarian Illuminate, and I think you know who I mean, the Illuminate Confirm. Now, the Illuminate Confirm were not necessarily involved in occultism. They were rationalists, they were deists, they were perhaps Platonists, but it could signify the fact that within the superstructure of the Roman Church, for example, even hiding behind tradition or Latin Mass or something like this, we find an occult structure. We find groups that are secretly excommunicated, or at least excommunicated in their own minds and hearts, who hold to a different Lord and Savior. And what's curious is that throughout this film, not only do we learn about a kind of dark baptism, but we learn about a further double baptism, right, corresponding to Christian baptism of initiation and then baptism of martyrdom later down the road if God calls you to that. Rather, here we have the baptism of full possession by Satan. That's all present in To the Devil, a Daughter, as well as mind control, handlers, altars, on and on and on. So the reason I would say, instead of watching Hereditary, which was kind of gross, watch something that's a little less gross from the 70s, To the Devil, a Daughter. And you'll see the exact same thing with more angles and more of the picture.
If you've never seen Jay's analysis, Christopher Lee recommends this site.
To the Devil, a Daughter. To the Devil, a Daughter is the Hammer film from 1976. And it bears a lot of similarities to today's horror occult genre. Specifically, it seems to be Hereditary 30 or 40 years ahead of time. Now, the film deals with a priest that we think is Catholic in the beginning. We're not really sure what's going on, but we see Christopher Lee excommunicated from some group for something. He responds by thinking to himself, "Excommunicate. It is not heresy." And he says he will not recant before the crucifix. We see him next as a priest, still running some sort of group, involved in a monastery, and he's interested in transporting a young girl named Catherine from Bavaria to another spot. Turns out this group within the so-called Catholic Church goes by the name Catholic, but is called the Family. Catherine is a member of this cult who was given as a child. She has what appears to be two handlers, who are an old couple, who have raised her as her surrogate mom and father. Now, this is interesting because we see in the film real-world parallels to the way many cults operate. Now, the film is based on the novel by Dennis Wheatley, and Dennis Wheatley did the other esoteric novel, The Devil Rides Out, that also stars Christopher Lee as Duke de Richelieu. If you've read Esoteric Hollywood 1, then you know that I did an analysis of The Devil Rides Out, and that's interesting because Dennis Wheatley was directly involved with Aleister Crowley, who was an MI5 asset. Now, we have similar themes to Devil Rides Out here as well, but the film centers around this cult operating within the UK. We find out that there's an occult novelist named John, And John has written books trying to look into the occult. He's looking for a good story. Now the cult, the daughter, Catherine, her father has gone to John to try to get his story out. And what he does is tell John that he needs to expose this. It could be a good story or whatever. But what he's actually trying to do is save his daughter. He's under the grip of the cult because he himself was a member and was threatened because his wife, the woman that he married, was chosen to be the mother of the daughter, who would be dedicated in terms of giving the child to Satan. Now, what's interesting already is that the cult has the idea of using sexual magic, we later learn, to create a moonchild, to create an incubus. We aren't clear that this is a non-canonical kind of a cult group until about 30 minutes into the film, where we notice there is a Baphomet plate that Christopher Lee is using in the ritual to bring about the birth of Catherine. We later learn that this was a flashback, that this was the birth of Catherine, and so kind of like Rosemary's Baby, we have a bit of a similarity to the idea of the woman who's chosen to bring the new Aeon. Now, this is not about Catherine being the mother of Antichrist per se, but Catherine is, we learn, one of the chosen children who's intended to be possessed by the Duke of Demon, the Duke of Hell, the Duke of the Demons, named Astaroth. Astaroth is in the Key of Solomon one of the many demons, and again, here's where the film bears a lot of similarities to Hereditary. So it turns out that this cult has breeders, and the breeders offer up the children to the cult. We notice then, as I said, that Christopher Lee directly offers the incense to Baphomet. And then he also engages in a lot of different occult practices, including voodoo. But most striking is the fact that the cult utilized coitus to traumatize this girl as she was raised in this cult. There's some pretty gross scenes that I can't show, I wouldn't recommend, that deal with a succubus, an incubus succubus type situation that's happening in the spiritual realm. But the point is that this all ends up leading to alters and split personality in the character of Catherine. So the author, John, ends up helping Catherine out of the cult. She's under mind control and triggered by an inverted cross that features Astaroth that is sent to her by Christopher Lee. And then in the process of trying to figure out the meaning of this cult and why there is the attempt to create a moonchild, we learn that Catherine is intended to be one of the new Aeons, one of the new teachers who will teach a new world religion. The new world religion is going to be New Agey. It's going to be a kind of a fluffy New Age thing, but she says it's to cloak a deeper Lucifer agenda. So we have all of the earmarks of what we're used to. What always pops up in all these kinds of stories is this Crowleyan theme of the bringing of the new age, the birth of a new child to lead into the new Aeon. The purpose of the rituals is for her to experience the possession by Astaroth, full and perfect possession, just like Hereditary. Well, it's a different demon, obviously, in Hereditary, but it's the exact same idea. In fact, it's even called the Great Work, and it's even described as the end result of evolution. We have even humans being offered here, just like in Eye of the Devil. If you haven't seen my analysis of Eye of the Devil, go and watch that, because that was Eyes Wide Shut 30 years before. And here, it looks like we have Hereditary 30 years before. A new humanistic religion is intended to be established that will secretly be run by a group of esoteric satanic elite, the Lords of Light. And what's curious is that just like with The Devil Rides Out and Duke de Richelieu, what Dennis Wheatley puts in his novel is the idea that, we can only defeat this occult power by utilizing occult power. And hence the film ends with the quote, "the Lords of Light." So as if light and dark are just same sides, flip sides of the same coin. But that's not really how it works. all this esoteric stuff has a point. It all has a dark side to it. All this new age stuff that people think is fluffy and nice actually has a dark secret to it. And ironically, it's revealed clearly in movies like To the Devil, a Daughter. This is Jay Dyer from Jay's Analysis. Thank you for watching this. Go and check out the film if you want to. It's a little gross in places. It's pretty goofy though, so I don't think you're going to be genuinely scared, but it's Hereditary 30 or 40 years ahead of time. So thank you for watching. Be sure to subscribe to my channel. Click the bell, subscribe, and like below, and share this with your friends. And if you want more, go to jaysanalysis.com and subscribe and purchase signed copies of my book in the shop. Thank you.